Hello and welcome back to video classes by Konnur English Medium School. Yesterday we talked about Vijayalakshmi Pandit and how she went through a difficult phase in her life and how a piece of advice given to her by Mahatma Gandhi helped her overcome these difficult situations. We talked about her having a conference with the South African delegation. Yes, that's where we stopped actually. There is a conference going on between the Indian team of delegates and the South African team of delegates. So why have they gathered there in New York? Why this meeting has been called is because there is a complaint raised by Indians living in South Africa against the local government. The Indians living in South Africa have said that they have been mistreated by the South African government. They are not receiving the equal treatment by the South African government. The government has brought out some policies which are not fair for the Indians. They are not fair in the treatment of Indians. So this issue has now become a major issue. So India has raised a complaint with the United Nations Organization, UNO. Okay, now this happens when two countries have a problem with each other, and if they cannot sort it out by talking to each other, then the UNO, the United Nations Organization, can be involved. It can intervene, and then it can try to find a solution for the problem. That's why this meeting was happening. It's important to understand that. So we have Indian delegates, a delegation comprising of experts in foreign affairs and relationship with other countries, and we also have a team like that coming from South Africa. So this meeting is taking place in New York, and instead of talking like the representatives of two big nations, they are fighting, they are quarreling, they are using harsh words against each other. So instead of trying to find a resolution, they are simply playing the blame game. Yes, the blame game. So when you start playing a blame game, there will be no solution. You will just waste time and your opportunity simply in blaming the other person. That was what was happening, and Vijayalakshmi Pandit saw that happening, and she didn't do much initially. Yes, she let it happen because South African people in the meeting, in their team, they were saying bad things about India. So she thought, okay, we will do the same for them. We will also talk in the same fashion. We will talk about South African culture and about them, and then we will also hurt them. So this went on. And she did not like that because she suddenly remembered her advisor, Mahatma Gandhi. She thought if Gandhiji was there in the meeting and if he saw this happening, he would definitely not approve it. He would definitely would not like that, because when you fight with somebody like this without respect, without any dignity, even if you win that fight, it's not a victory, it's not a win. That is important. How you win is also important. Not just the victory itself, but the way you win is also important. So what are the exact words here? Yes, means are as important as the end. Now, means has different meaning, so we know what does it mean, that mean, yes, that is there. But here means sadhanagalu, margagalu, yes, the ways, the methods. So the methods you use or the way you take to achieve a victory, and the end here means the victory or the purpose that you want to achieve. So how you achieve that purpose, how you attain the victory is also important. Means are important as well, not only the victory, because victory or the purpose that you achieve by wrong means is not really achievement at all. That's what Gandhi believed, and Vijay Lakshmi Pandit remembers that. And that night, okay, this meeting went on for a few days. So that night, before going to bed, let's continue reading, okay? Paragraph number 13, if you follow me. Before going to bed that night, I resolved that, come what might, no word of mine would be lightly used in the United Nations. From then on, I lifted the debate back to where it belonged, refusing to retaliate to personal attacks or to score a cheap point. Our opponents met us on the new level, and from then we argued the case on its merits. Okay, so that night, before she went to bed, she sat down and thought about how things were going around. She thought, why should we act like the South Africans? If they are insulting us, why should we insult them back? If they are trying to hurt us by using harsh words against our country, why should we do something to retaliate? To retaliate means attacking back. Why should we do that? What's the difference between them and us if we do that? So she decided, from tomorrow in the meeting, in that conference, we will not do what they are doing. So instead, if they are hurting us, if they are taking an insulting approach towards us, we will stay calm and quiet, and we will act respectfully. And that was something that worked as a miracle, because from the next day, as the Indian delegation refused to use this means that South Africans were using to achieve their purpose, the meeting now became meaningful. They also stopped, because Indian delegation refused to act like them. They stopped. They changed their approach. They changed their manners and fashions of debate, and from there on, the meeting became what it should have become. They started discussing problems at a mature level, with dignity and respect for each other. Before leaving the committee room on the last day, I went up and spoke to the leader of the opposing delegation. So after a few days, this conference, this meeting was over, and Vijay Lakshmi Pandit, who was the leader of Indian delegation, went to meet the leader of the South African delegation. Yes, and she talked to him, and she spoke these words: I have come to ask you to forgive me if I have hurt you by any word or action in this debate. Okay, now who started using the harsh words first? Who took the wrong approach in the meeting first? It was the South African delegates. They started taking that wrong approach, and Indian delegates responded in the same fashion. So who should apologize here to whom? So you will say that, yes, the South Africans should come and say sorry to the Indian delegates. But Vijay Lakshmi Pandit went a step beyond that, and she thought, I will go and say sorry myself, even though it was not our fault initially. So she goes to the leader of the opposing delegation and she says, I have come here to say sorry. So if we acted in a way or used any word that hurt you in any way, I am apologizing for that. I am apologizing for that, she says. Yes, and what did the leader of the opposing delegation say? He said, I have no complaint. He smiled and said, well, that's fine. I have no complaints about how you all acted. Because he knew that Indians were only retaliating the way South Africans were acting in the meeting. So he says, that's fine. I have no complaints. That's fine. We are not hurt by what you did. So it was good to feel right with him, but even better to feel right with myself. Once more, Gandhiji's advice had saved me from myself. So Vijay Lakshmi Pandit said, what I did then by going to the opposition leader, the leader of the opposing delegation, and apologizing to him, even though it was not our fault, That made me feel so good. In her eyes, her own respect, her self-esteem, and her respect for her nation and her people, it grew. Because she did something very respectful and very noble. Even though it was not their fault, she went and apologized to the leader of the opposing delegation. And why did she do that? She did that because she remembered what Gandhiji had said. Nobody can harm you except yourself. So if a situation goes out of control, you alone are responsible for it. So in the meeting, the situation was going out of control, and there was no point in sitting there and blaming the South Africans. So Vijayalakshmi Pandit decided to bring it back on track. She remembered Gandhiji's advice. So this is the second situation which saved Vijayalakshmi Pandit from trouble. The advice Gandhiji had given had saved her from trouble in the second situation. Of course, the first situation, if you remember, we talked about it in the last session. It was about her bad relationship with her in-laws. The relationship had become bad because they had refused to give her a share in the family property, just saying that the law doesn't require them to do that, because she had lost her husband and she did not have a son. So the relationships again, they became good after she went and talked to them, and something good happened here in the meeting as well, just by following Gandhiji's words. Okay, then his words have helped me retain perspective even in small matters. So she continues to share another experience of hers with us. She says, when sorting out the matter with the relatives and here with the South African delegation, there were big issues, there were big matters. So of course I have successfully handled these two situations by simply following the very helpful advice given by Gandhi. But his words, Gandhiji's words, she says, they have helped me even in small matters as well. Small matters which could create some larger troubles. Even in those matters, she says, I have applied this advice, and this advice has worked. So she's going to share with us a very interesting situation, actually, a very interesting incident. Although it is a very small and silly one, it could have put her in serious trouble. So let's read about that incident too. Many women, I imagine, share with me a recurring nightmare. Someone important to you is coming to dine. The guests have arrived. It is time to eat, but there is no dinner. You wake perspiring, relieved to find it is only a dream. Well, she says, many women have this, the fear of things going wrong when you have guests at home. Yes, because when there are guests, women, they retire to kitchen and then they start preparing lunch or dinner or snacks, and if something goes wrong in that, then they will be blamed for that. Yeah, there will be two serious troubles that they would have to face. First, they would be blamed. Secondly, the guests would be, they would have to leave without eating. So that's not good at all. So women have this fear, what if something goes wrong? I'm preparing something, what if it doesn't turn out the way it should, or I'm expecting it to? So this is kind of a bad dream, many women have this, many women sometimes wake up from sleep at night, perspiring, yes, just in their dream they saw this, the guests have arrived and something else gone wrong in the kitchen, so you can't, prepare dinner for the guests and they have to leave without the dinner, and then you will be blamed for that. So this is called a nightmare, When you have, some of us do have some dreams that wake us up in the night, the same kind of dream that keeps happening every few days. We wake up and then we see that, okay, it's just a dream, just a nightmare. So recurring nightmare is a bad dream that keeps happening from time to time. So why is he talking about guests? Why is he talking about dinner? Why is he talking about something going wrong when the guests are there at your house? We'll see that this situation is something about that. So recently it really happened to me. That bad dream came real for her. Something really went wrong when the guests were there at her house. And my guests of honor, the Prime Minister of Great Britain and Lady Eden, could hardly have been more important to me, High Commissioner from India in the United Kingdom. Right? So she was going to host some guests as the High Commissioner of India in the United Kingdom. So High Commissioner of India means she was the representative of the Indian government and the Indian people in the United Kingdom. So it's a very important position. And she had invited the Prime Minister of Great Britain and Lady Eden, his wife. They both were supposed to come to her house as guests, and dinner had to be prepared, and there was a small party that had been planned. So, do you think these were ordinary guests? No, they were the Prime Minister and his wife. So, if something goes wrong there, it will reflect on the whole nation, India itself. So, it means that Indians couldn't treat the Prime Minister of Great Britain and his wife well. So, very important dinner party for the High Commissioner of India, who was Mrs. Vijay Lakshmi Pandit. Right. So I had planned everything meticulously, from the menu to the color scheme of the flowers and the candles. So she knew that she had to be very careful in arranging things. So she had already talked to the secretaries and assistants at the Prime Minister's office, the Great Britain's Prime Minister's office, and she had found out what type of food they like, and she had prepared a menu for the dinner that night, and she had done everything very carefully. She had taken care of everything, even flowers, the colors, the lighting, everything had been done very carefully. So she had planned it all very well. When the guests had arrived and drinks had been passed twice, I signaled the butler to announce dinner. So the Prime Minister and Lady Eden come to her bungalow, her mansion, and they are welcomed. They are requested to take their seats, and the conversation is happening between High Commissioner of India Vijay Lakshmi Pandit and the Prime Minister and his wife. So they are also drinking. Yes, maybe wine was served, and usually wine is served before the dinner. So the wine was served twice already, and you don't serve it thrice. It's not good. You have to bring the dinner, and there is a butler who is in charge of that. A very well-dressed man, and he's trained. He knows he's been trained how to behave in the presence of all these high-profile guests. So Vijay Lakshmi Pandit signals to the butler to bring the dinner, because the drinks have been served twice already. So the guests would be hungry, and also they are not ordinary people. They would have other things to attend to. Everything goes according to a schedule. So dinner had to be finished. Vijay Lakshmi Pandit asks the butler to get the dinner, and will the dinner be served? Well, but still we waited. When for the third time drinks came round, I excused myself and ran downstairs to the kitchen. But after signaling the butler to bring the dinner, he didn't bring the dinner. So they sat there and waited. And Vijay Lakshmi Pandit doesn't know what is going on. I mean, she cannot leave the guests and go out and then find out something herself. That doesn't look good. You cannot leave the Prime Minister and his wife sitting there alone, right? So, but she doesn't know why the dinner is not coming. She is waiting. The guests are waiting. She thought maybe it will be brought soon after that. But no. Instead of the dinner, the drinks were brought again. For the third time. Dinner didn't come. Instead, drinks were brought once again. Then she realized something was wrong. And she could no longer just sit there signaling the butler to bring the dinner, because she knew again the drinks would be brought for the fourth time if that happened. So she excused herself. She said, "Excuse me," to the Prime Minister and the Lady Eden, and she rushed downstairs to the kitchen where the dinner was supposed to be ready. So what does she see there in the kitchen? We'll talk about that in the next class, right? So please read this lesson, underline the difficult words, make notes. If you need any help, then you can contact me. We will come back to this lesson in the next class.